Thank you for having me here with all of my esteemed colleagues. And I have a guest in the building. This is the Madman, personal trainer for combat sports. Just who it's the guy who gets to punch me in the face pretty often when we're training. So glad to have him here and let him listen to the podcast. Congressional researchers say DA likely to reschedule marijuana. We spoke about this together with broad implications for taxes, housing, immigration, and more. Congressional research, congressional researchers say it's likely that the Food and Drug Administration, the DEA, will follow the top federal agencies' recent recommendations to reschedule marijuana, which have broad implications for federal policy in areas such as taxes, housing, immigration, military, eligibility, gun rights, and more. In a recent published in a report published on Wednesday, analysts for the Congressional Research Service (CRS) gave an overview of the cannabis scheduling review directed by President Joe Biden last year and assessed the potential impact of moving marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 on the Controlled Substance Act (CSA), as recommended by the United States Department of Health and Human Services (HHS). While the DEA has affirmed that it is bound by the health agency's scientific and medical findings, it can still make a conflicting schedule decision. But if it passed prolonged, it could be likely the DEA will reschedule marijuana according to the HHS's recommendations, CRS said. It pointed to an example of the DEA following HHS scheduling advice when it came to the synthetic cannabinoid product, Miranol, which was placed on the Schedule 3 in 1999. If marijuana is rescheduled to Schedule 3, it would have broad implications for federal policy, CRS said. Also, the move would have significant implications for state medical marijuana programs and users of medical marijuana, but fewer implications for state recreational marijuana programs and those who use marijuana recreationally. There is some disagreement among experts about the extent to which rescheduling cannabis would affect state level medical marijuana programs. CRS says such an action would make it legal to manufacture, distribute, dispense, and possess medical marijuana. But others say with Food and Drug Administration, the FDA approval, and manufacturers obtaining DEA licenses, that could not be the case. CRS also said that a Schedule 3 reclassification would mean that the state medical marijuana programs may now be able to comply with the CSA and will still be subject to CSA and DEA criminal and regulatory control. Federal public health laws, such as the FDA Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act, and agricultural laws, such as the Agricultural Marketing Act of 1946. The scope and demand of the DEA's oversight of of medical marijuana and related products may grow considerably. In the short term, the FDA may need to generate or update a substantial amount of technical information to clarify its regulatory approach to marijuana for relevant stakeholders. Given that marijuana is a complex substance containing various pharmaceutical components and is available to consumers in numerous formats, the FDA may also need to consider long-term resource allocations to ensure that marijuana products consistently meet applicable regulatory standards. Schedule 3 would also make it so medical cannabis patients would be eligible for immigrant and non-immigrant visas. They could also purchase and possess firearms, the CRS said. It added that the same rights would not apply to adult use cannabis consumers. Again, it is not clear would be need the steps would be needed for state medical cannabis laws and people acting under those laws to come fully into compliance with rules for Schedule 3 drugs. Colorado Governor Jared Polis, a Democrat, for example, recently sent a letter to Biden calling the FDA guidance to minimize economic disruption, promote state federal collaboration, and protect the public's health while respecting current state laws. That's important. The new CRS report says that under Schedule 3, marijuana products and retailers will be able to deduct the cost of selling their product, i.e., payroll, rent, advertising, for the purposes of federal income tax filings, adding that the reclassification would also free up into cannabis. The DEA would no longer set production quota limitations for marijuana. It said those who use medical marijuana lawfully may contend with fewer barriers to federal employment and eligibility to serve in the military. The report concludes that by noting that Congress could separately choose to address any number of issues related to the potential rescheduling of marijuana, including by independently rescheduling or scheduling cannabis, or replacing it entirely and placing it on an entirely new schedule. If the administration reschedule process moves forward, Congress may consider whether to devote additional resources to the FDA and the U.S. Department of Agriculture to ensure the safety and quality of many different products already available in many states, in many state markets, CRS said. As the DEA moves forward with its own review into cannabis scheduling, administrator and Milgram had made it clear that it is very well follow that they will very well follow the science. Biden, for his part, hasn't personally commented on the HHS rescheduling recommendations. But the White House press secretary did say last month that the president has made it very clear he has always supported the legalization of medical marijuana. Of course, that's not accurate to say that Biden has always backed cannabis reform. As a senator, he championed several legislations that ramped up the war on drugs and destroyed the black community. Congressional lawmakers across party lines have applauded the top health agency's recommendations. Some have described it as an important step to the path of federal legalization. Others have claimed credit for the move, pointing to their years of advocacy. Sorry, you guys, around marijuana reform. But not everyone is celebrating the news. This week, a coalition of 14 Republican congressional lawmakers urged the DEA to reject the HHS recommendations rescheduling marijuana and instead keep it in Schedule 1. Another GOP lawmaker, Rep. Murphy of North Carolina, separately sent a letter to the HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra on Tuesday that voiced concern about the agency's rescheduling recommendations and prompt the official with several questions about how it reached this decision. Meanwhile, a GOP congressional congressman who does support legalization recently expressed concern that simply moving marijuana to Schedule 3 may inadvertently lead to the pharmaceutical industry takeover of the cannabis industry. And that's what we said last time when we actually spoke about this being moved to a Schedule 3. That's why I had to make sure that I read this. And I'm sorry if I kept y'all longer for 8 minutes. But to me, this was really important because on this show, we told you guys that if it went to Schedule 3, that basically the pharmaceutical companies would then own marijuana. So it's going to be difficult. There still is a fight that's happening. There's still going to be states and they're going to know that they realize that the the instability this will cause economically, because the states like Colorado, who are already highly dependent on the taxes that they are getting from the dispensaries, whether it's medical or recreational, they're not going to want to lose this type of money. This is going to be a fight that we need to, I think, voice our opinions on as much as we can possibly, because if it does move to a Schedule 3, although it would be cool for now, it won't once the pharmaceutical company gets a hold of it, because they can treat it like prescription drugs that may not have your name on it when you're driving in a car, and it can be even worse than that. It's just a bad look. I believe if it goes there, I don't think that the federal government, if it should just be decriminalized. That's it.
Descheduled. Descheduled is the word. Descheduled is the word.
Then it should be descheduled.
Yes, that's what it is.
If it's going to be regulated, it should be to a point like you do.
You regulate it like a nutraceutical. Like a nutraceutical.
21
Yes.
and over. Look,
like
you
a
don't
plant.
need to be 18 getting high either. Be 21 and over.
It's an agricultural commodity.
I would agree with it.
It's an agricultural commodity. That's how it got to be treated.
Rescheduling would be a disaster.
Exactly.
Absolute disaster.
Any number of rescheduling would be a disaster. And it will be.
Exactly.
Because it sounds like it's about to happen.
There's a lot of rules and regulations in place for what it takes to produce Schedule 1 through 5 drugs. And I don't know of anybody that's a social equity applicant right now that would qualify for any of that shit. I'm a felon. I'm never going to be in one of these businesses. We just got what we're doing right now. And pharmaceuticals would be able to comply with all the regulations. So yeah, open the door and let them in.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
End of this.
Pretty much. And meanwhile,
that's why I think that they initially even advocated for it to be moved to descheduled to level 3, because they already understood what the implications would be. These people are not stupid. They're not stupid at all. So they're trying to. This is the carrot with the stick. So, and this is all this is. This is the carrot with the stick. You know, you think that you're going to get it because it's dangling in front of your face, but it's absolutely not that. This is a backdoor way for the pharmaceutical company to come in and just completely take over the cannabis industry.
Exactly, which is exactly why. Go ahead, Gretchen.
Schedule 3 was proposed is because it throws a carrot, like you say, Tony, out to the industry, getting rid of 280E and opens the door for research. That's what they think is going to get businesses on board and going along with this. But as you say, they do not understand the implications of what this would actually do to the industry. And frankly, Washington does not care what it would do to this industry. Most of the folks that you are arguing with to try and get to change this do not care about cannabis. I don't care what you say. They're 100 years old. They believe in reefer madness. It is not in their agenda to take care of this industry whatsoever. Take a look at Jared Huffman, congressman for Northern California. How many names do you see him sponsoring cannabis bills? He's got $1 billion industry in his backyard, and he doesn't do dick for it. That should tell people something.
There you go. There you go.